in a nutshell, the 34th Ward run from State Street at 103rd all the way back to I-57 just before Julian High School at Vincennes to 127. At 127 it ducks in and out at some points, and it runs drop down at just past Halsted at 99 and drops down to 99th Street and goes back. So anywhere basically between 99th and State Street and I-57 Vincennes, all the way back to 127 from State Street to Halsted, if you know somebody. All the way back from 127 from State Street all the way back to Vincennes, if you know somebody. Now it ducks in and out at certain points around 119 and at 103rd, but in that general area, if you know somebody, you tell them to vote for the coach. If you don't think, just tell them to go to the polls and look for the coach. You don't see the coach, vote for anybody other than the incumbent. Coach on a vote them all kid. But we have many social and economic conditions in our community. And as we move into this new decade of the 21st century, there has to be a movement afoot for change. We've heard the preacher preach a liberation gospel, as the European media liked to call it when they was discussing Jeremiah Wright, a liberation gospel. Anyway, and we've seen the preachers get on the bus and pray, and we've seen the circus parade through neighborhoods talking about we're going to take our community back like a clown in a circus. We didn't see all that in this last 2 decades. Now it's time to move into a decade of accomplishments. We have new voices of leadership that are emerging over these old guard leaders. And I'm not going to necessarily knock the old guard leaders, because there was a point in time where they served their calling. But it's time for new leadership to take the course of our people into a new direction. We have social and economic problems in our community that's tied directly to the lack of wealth that flows through our community. And what we have to do, we need leadership that's going to harness those dollars and bring about change in our community. And the first way to harness those dollars is we have to redirect the flow of the wealth that goes in and out of our community. Because the flow of the wealth has been allowed to flow in one direction, down one channel. And all we have to do is look at the awarding of city, state, and county contracts and see what direction those dollars have been flowing in. And then we realize that we have the power to change the flow of those channels. We can allow it to continue to flow this way, we can allow it to flow that way, or we can change it that way, or we can open up and allow it to be inclusive. But the first thing you must understand in this new generation that we're embarking on, that what we have to do is we have to go out on February 22nd and we have to elect a new mayor. And we have to elect a mayor that has some interest in what goes on in our community. And not necessarily a black mayor. Not necessarily. But I was a little bit caught off guard just as I was leaving to go out of town for Christmas to find out that Reverend Senator James Meeks decided to drop out of the race for mayor. I really didn't expect that. And then to come back in town on New Year's Day and someone asked me that you hear that Danny Davis dropped out of the race. I was totally caught off guard. I mean, I understand for the good and the betterment of our community, that or the best chance, let me rephrase that. I understand that for the best chance of electing an African American mayor of the city, that you could not have 3 major black candidates splitting up the vote. Because the fact of the matter is, when this European media get through telling us that Rahm Emanuel is the leader, and get through telling us that Chico is a viable candidate, the fact of the matter is, no matter what they say, we are the only ones standing as a solid block, have the numbers, the electoral numbers, the registered voters to determine who will be the mayor. See, when it's all said and done, there's over 500,000 black registered voters. Really, there's closer to 600,000 black registered voters in this city when it's all said and done. And there's only 115,000 total Hispanic registered voters in the city. So, and there's about a little over 400,000 to 500,000 registered white voters in the city. So if we just stood as a block, no one could be elected in the city, the state, and county without the benefit of the black vote. The media won't tell you that. See, I sit at home and I watch the news. Actually, I've got to the point I stopped watching the news. I like to watch it to be informed of what's going on and know what's going on in our communities and in the lay of the land. But the more I listen to the news, Mike Flannery, Jay Levine, Carol Marine, Joe Wiseman, the more my stomach regurgitates when I listen to the BS that they put out on the news. And no regards, no respect for our community. And I'm to the point now I call the station and let them know, you know, that story you ran was biased. It was racist. And I've come to realize that when you look at all of the stations, the media outlets that air in Chicago, Channel 2, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 9, Fox News, Chicago Tonight, the radio stations, all of those stations have white producers. They have white assignment editors. And what happened is they don't understand our community. So they don't know how to relate a fair and balanced story when they're giving the news in relation to our community because they're out of touch. So what they do is they report it from their eyes. And their eyes is always a negative, a divisive, and unfavorable opinion of our community. I've come to realize that. So when I watch the news and I turn it on Channel 7, and then I flick the channel to Channel 5, and then flick the channel to Channel 2, within a matter of minutes, the exact same news is being reported. In a city that's over 3 million people, a suburban population around the city, over 6 million people total, and when you turn on all your news stories, within 2 minutes of them, they all reporting the exact same news story. You get the weather at the same time. You get the sports at the same time. You get the same news stories. If they're talking about Princess Diana and her son, Prince, whoever about to get married, when you turn on Channel 5 and flick to Channel 2, you will see that same story within a minute of each other. If they're talking about the mayor's race, you're going to see the same story within a minute. So there is no news. There is no news. This is garbage TV, sensational news that we get. And the problem is they don't portray our community fairly and the way it should be portrayed. And they brainwash us to think Rahm Emanuel is the leading candidate for mayor. And if you want to elect the next mayor, it's going to have to be Rahm Emanuel. When they don't tell you, the fact of the matter is that if the black votes come out in one solid block, no one can win for mayor unless they come through the black community. And then they give you these polls that Chico is ahead and Rahm Emanuel is ahead and the black candidates are so far behind. But what they don't tell you in those polls, supposedly, in those surveys, that if they took a solid block of the black votes, the black candidate would win if our community is not divided. This is why They banked on the fact that we would have 3 strong black candidates in Reverend Senator Meeks, Congressman Danny Davis, and Curl Mosley Brown, among the other blacks, among the other black candidates. And they banked on the fact that they would split and divide the black vote up. And Rahm Emanuel, even though there was a strong anti-Rahm Emanuel vote out there,